I've had female friends that say, what do I do? I want to, I want to get fit. I want to blah, 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 fill in the blank. And one of the first things I tell them is what you said, a person who is a fitness professional. I say, you got to work in some resistance training in your regimen. And then they say, I don't want to get big and bulky like the She-Hulk. And to which I always say, do you know how hard it is to build new muscle?
Can I touch on that real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
For those ladies. So here's some like the science behind that. So the value of doing resistance training. So say you're a woman who's trying to lose some weight and you don't want to get big. You use the same analogy I would. It's like, I've been trying to get big for 18 years and it hasn't happened. And I got testosterone in my playbook. So it's not really going to happen. But the reality is, if you're looking to lose weight, you do have to be in a caloric deficit. Okay. Now, if we're in a caloric deficit, the idea of bringing resistance training in is to then support and maintain the muscle mass that you do have. Because most likely what will happen, you're going to atrophy some muscle mass while you're in that deficit. So the resistance training is actually help you maintain that muscle mass. So while you do cut body fat, you hold on to your muscles. So then you then have that lean physique that you actually want. So the likelihood that if you're in a deficit that you're also going to be building muscle is a very challenging thing to do, and most people aren't going to be in it. Now, if you are lifting and you're like, man, I'm just getting huge, well, then you're probably not in a deficit. You're eating too much food at that point, the intake. So yeah, I have that same argument with women oftentimes, and the reality is take some measurements, put a tape measure to it, because I have had clients like that where 2 weeks in, they're like, I feel like I'm getting kind of bulky, and they wanted to stop. And it's like, well, let's put some data on that. Tape measure, they're down on a 1/4 inch. It's like, hey, look at that.
Digging a little bit deeper on that, the one thing I tell them is like, well, there's other benefits to resistance training. I say, well, there's this thing called your skeleton that, you help your bone density, your longer prospects of having a healthier level of bone density, your fucking tissues, your cartilage, your joints, would you, fitness guy who I'm talking to, would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely, and it's going to happen more at the younger years, where if by using some overload, you're going to basically create higher levels of bone density to deal with things like osteoporosis. So that caps usually, I think, around like 30, but the big one to me is what you're doing is you're building strength to support proper positioning and proper biomechanics, which is going to save you from going into degenerative movement patterns, which then would be create things like osteoarthritis, where we're simply just moving improperly. We're jamming on joints. This is posturally significant. So again, if you can think of that person with like hunched shoulders, well, if they don't have the strength to hold the scapula down and back, that shoulder's now set to be in an impinged position. So now the likelihood of injury goes up. So yeah, your muscle mass is the supporting system that takes you through this world.
Degenerative, what was the term again?
So if you're going to have like degenerative movement patterns, meaning think of how we all picture the old hunched over man and walking. So there's a level of, most likely with that guy, he lost muscle mass, he's losing range of motion, and now he's going into some dysfunctional, or I would say like even degenerative movement patterns. So a great example would be somebody when they do a lunge that their knee collapses in past their midline. It's like that's stressing the soft tissue ligaments, their meniscus, the MCL is going to be getting stressed. So if you move improperly, you are stressing soft tissue, and you're at a higher risk for soft tissue injuries. If you have a higher level of strength, you have a better chance of having proper movement patterns.
You're talking about this repetition of poor movement or posture exponentially over the duration of a person's lifetime, or until there's an injury.
As we age, there is a thing called sarcopenia, where we are going to lose muscle mass as we age. Like there's not a lot of 90-year-olds that are super buff, right? But yeah, so having muscle mass is probably one of the most advantageous things that you can do for the longevity of your physical health. Again, every time you go up a flight of stairs, like that's a quote unquote step up, right? Every time you get up off of the ground, that would be the same movement pattern that is a lunge. Every time you get up off of the toilet or a chair, that is a squat. So a lot of the exercises, truthfully, they should be mimicking movement patterns for life. So again, this isn't just vanity stuff or like, hey, I want to look good. This is having strength to get you through life, man. This is the vehicle that takes you on this journey. And by having a stronger musculoskeletal system, you're going to have a better journey for sure.